Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Tuesday night. We're live, we're national. Our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And there's a lot going on. You've got Judge Cannon systemically exposing the deep state. Of course, the deep state fires back. They're saying she's incompetent, she's a bozo, she's this. Then we've got Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden says, hey, look, I know you guys convicted me, but I think you should vacate all of those charges. I don't want to get into that right now because I think I should just be set free. And then we got Julian Assange. Some say hero, some say traitor. He's pled guilty to spying, and now he's free for the first time in 12 years. So we're going to dig into that in the next couple of minutes. As well as getting into a bunch of other things tonight, like sex change surgeries for kids, hospitals that are complicit, then saying they're not complicit, then vacillating on the topic, as well as what's going on with the war on parents and school children. That continues to rage on, and we're going to get an update on that as well. Plus, your calls, 833-4-Valdez. But I want to start with Judge Cannon. All right, Judge Cannon, Andrew Weissman, who is one of the problematic, that's probably putting it nicely, attorneys over the years from the Department of Justice. The guy's real shady. He was on MSNBC yesterday, and he says that Judge Cannon is a biased, inexperienced bozo. Listen to this.
I ask you the question I ask you all the time about Eileen Cannon as you talk about her. It's the inescapable question. Politically biased, bozo, or both?
Boy, it's this like that game show where it's, do you want behind the curtain or within the box? So I actually think it's both. There's no question she is inexperienced, and she does not have the tools to handle a case that's this complicated. That's clear. There's, everyone's seen that. We also do have the fact that the 11th Circuit, a conservative circuit that she is in, reversed her not once but twice. And those were conservative judges who just thought she was absolutely bonkers in terms of her rulings. And of course, both times that she was overturned, her rulings were for Trump. It's not like she's inexperienced and sometimes she gets it right for Trump and sometimes she gets it right or wrong for the government. They're always siding with Donald Trump, and it's very, very hard at this point to see her as being anything other than partisan.
I wonder if it has anything to do with Donald Trump having a point in those situations, right? Donald Trump being the victim, Donald Trump being the target of the lawfare from the Biden administration and her calling it out. That makes her a politically biased bozo that's inexperienced, or both? Unbelievable how this works. And again, I understand they're critics, and that's what critics do. But at some point, you've got to give the other side a chance, right? You've got to listen to what they have to say and then make a choice for yourself. And I think that's what people need to do, just like we're going to do in a couple of days with those debates, right? When we hear Joe El Baboso Biden repeat after himself all night long saying that Trump is a convicted felon. I think it's high time America has a convicted felon in the White House, if that's the case. But Judge Cannon is doing the right thing. I think little by little she is asking the right questions and putting the right people in place to say what they've got to say. The fact that they're saying, she shouldn't let people that are interested in questioning Jack Smith's eligibility for appointment to present their amicus briefs. She's, people are criticizing her, saying she should just read them and consider them, but she doesn't have to allow them to present them in open court. Good for her. Good for her for doing what she believes is right. I mean, I understand the left and why they're angry. I do. But in reality, I think the American people who are watching, the people in the court, herself, people want to hear the facts. They hear the facts, and then they feel a little bit more comfortable with things, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. Kind of like the people that heard the facts about the Hunter Biden case. And, of course, Hunter Biden was convicted. But now he's saying, well, hold on a second, guys. Maybe we can get my conviction vacated. Listen to this.
Hunter Biden is requesting a new trial less than 2 weeks after he was convicted on 3 felony counts on federal gun charges. Biden's attorneys filed papers yesterday arguing that his convictions should be vacated on a procedural technicality. In a separate filing, his attorney said that because Biden never used his gun in a dangerous way, he should retain his right to bear arms. A federal jury in Wilmington, Delaware, found Biden guilty of lying to obtain a weapon by saying he was not addicted to drugs.
So I don't know where you weigh in on that one. All I know is Hunter Biden's going to use the system as best as he can. He's in a good spot. I don't think he's going to get in trouble for a lot of things. Who knows? He might get this thing overturned so that he can move forward with his life scot-free, so that he can go on to maybe make more babies that he won't take care of. And maybe that was a low blow. I don't want to be mean to the guy. I think by all accounts from what I've seen on TV, he doesn't come across as a nasty person. He comes across as somebody that I think is an affable guy, Hunter Biden, right? When you see him in interviews, he seems, like a decent person that went through a difficult time. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe we need to ask his baby mama, right, Lunden Roberts, what she has to say. I know that she's got a brand new book out, and my intention is to speak with her in the next few minutes to get the scoop on what Hunter Biden's all about. I want to get inside the mind of Hunter Biden, what it's like. I want to know what it was like when I know it was described that when they met, he had paraphernalia, like crack pipes, open on his desk at Rosemont Seneca. And then, of course, they had their relationship stemming back to the strip bar. And I'm going to get some clarification on whether they met in a strip bar or did they meet in the office with the crack pipes. I don't know, but we're going to find out. And this is the same gentleman that they're hoping will be able to hold on to his Second Amendment rights. And I don't want to take anybody's Second Amendment rights away, honestly. I think Hunter Biden should pay the price that he's got to pay for whatever it is. And if that's the price, then that's the price. But I don't really believe that we should treat him or anybody else, honestly, less fairly than we would anybody else, because this is what they've done to Trump. And this is exactly what we don't want. We don't want a system of justice that's any worse today than it's ever been, right? We want to make it better, not worse. So stick around, folks. We're going to have this conversation with Lunden Roberts. And, of course, your calls and more are coming up after that. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, here with you till 1 a.m. Eastern Time. And as promised, I want to get into this topic. You guys remember a while back, of course, during Christmas time, there was some controversy on this. And prior to that, where President Biden was taken to task by the media because he did not acknowledge all of his grandchildren. And good on the media. Of course, I take exception to the media sometimes, but every now and again, they get it right. And I think they got it right in this situation where they were saying, hold on a second, there's more grandbabies and you're not acknowledging them. Now, we've got a clip from our archive of President Biden doing just that. Listen to this.
Above all, I see a future for all of America, a future for my daughters, my 4 granddaughters. By the way, they're incredible. You should meet my granddaughters. Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not. A future for all women. And I'll always be a president for all Americans because I believe in America.
Now, of course, part of what I do every day is take shots. I take shots at Biden for forgetting things, right? He forgets things. He stumbles and bumbles every now and again. But this is one of those things where you just don't do that, right? I'm a father of 2. I have 2 daughters. Imagine if I were to forget one of my kids. Boy, somebody would have my head, right? So I think it was appropriate and fair for them to take him to task on this. Now, eventually, Joe Biden, he comes to terms with things, and he does get this right. But I want to get to the bottom of this with somebody who lived this, right? Somebody who understands it, somebody who was there. The mom of the 5th granddaughter, Navy, and her name is Lunden Roberts. She's the author of Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. Lunden Roberts, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Now, I've never met you before. I only know what I've read in the media and what I've read thus far from the promotion of your book. So I'm looking forward to, you setting the record straight and really sharing a lot about, your experience. When you heard that in the media, what was your initial reaction to hearing the President of the United States, your daughter's grandpa, seemingly misstepping here and not acknowledging her?
It's disgusting. It's distasteful. It's hurtful. There's many words to describe it and many emotions that come with it, but no pleasant ones. It's like you said, the media has put pressure on them for that, and that's something I think they rightfully should have. And sometimes the media does get it right, and that was an instance.
Now, Lunden Roberts, for everybody that's listening, and we've got listeners all across the country and in various time zones, so I want to introduce you to them, and I want you to really kind of just give us an idea of who you are, because all the media reports that we've gotten were Hunter Biden met some girl at a strip bar, and there's a baby, and everything's very obscure, but the reality is everybody here is a real person with a real story, and we want to know your story.
That's true. I was young, dumb, and naive, but I didn't meet Hunter at a strip club. I actually met him at his consultant firm, Rosemont Seneca, and that was the first night that I met Hunter and got to know him. And we built a relationship for over a year before I got pregnant, on and off.
So
yes.
Now you were
I've
there
been seeing him for months before it
for
came out in the
business,
media
or you
that
were
he
just
was
hanging
being
out,
outed.
happened to be at the office?
There was a sort of gathering, like an after party type gathering with a few people there.
Got it.
And I was invited by a friend who was invited by a friend, and I didn't know who Hunter was at the time until I ran into him there and had a conversation.
Got it. So, all right. So you meet him.
Right.
You guys are dating. You're in a relationship you said for about a year before the baby gets introduced. Do things change when you have the baby, or when you become pregnant?
Yeah, things definitely change, when I become pregnant, because on and off, I tell in the book, the first few chapters are about our relationship, from the night we met to these wild, crazy stories, and Hunter being larger than life, and, why I fell for him, the things that, made me fall for him, and who he was, or who he portrayed to me that he was, despite his addiction and his demons that he was battling at that time. And then there's a turn when I tell him that I'm pregnant, because within, at first when I tell him, he's completely supportive. I tell him, I go out to his house that he was renting in Annapolis, Maryland at the time. And I tell him to his face that I'm pregnant, and he knows it's his, and he's going to be supportive, and whatever decision I make, he'll support that, and he will be there no matter what, financially, emotionally, mentally, whatever it took, he was going to be there. And then over that next month, that just kind of kept fading and fading. He became more distant and more distant until he was completely absent. And that's when I came home to Arkansas and I carried our child by myself. And I had a baby. And I had not talked to him again until a year ago. And our daughter will be 6 in August.
Wow. Wow. Well, she's gorgeous, by the way. I'm looking at the cover of the book.
You.
Beautiful baby girl. And let's unpack that first part of the book, if you don't mind, before Navy is born. The wild side, the craziness, right? And you meet this person that's larger than life. Because I think that's what people really are interested in knowing this. At least I am, right? I realize that Hunter Biden is I'm guessing, a very charismatic guy. His dad was vice president. He's president. And he seems like, honestly, my thinking of him is he seems like a nice guy, a funny guy, a very affable guy that that you'd want to hang out with, despite whatever issues he has or despite my differences in politics with his dad. I think he seems like a guy that's just a decent guy. So tell us what that was like, that roller coaster.
It was, I talk about the first night of meeting him, and I believe it's William Shakespeare that says the eyes are the windows to the soul. And I remember the first time we locked eyes, I just thought he had the most beautiful blue-gray eyes, and you could see there was a lot of pain there, and there was, this paraphernalia on the desk, and he was in the back room while, other people are out in the front, talking and having a smoke on the balcony or whatever, just casual conversation. Hunter's in the back room. His demons kept him back there in the dark, and I just walked right in, and we talked, and he was very, like you said, very charming. He was like the silver-tongued devil. It was, very genuine, and he has this way of making everyone feel as if they mattered. He came off, hey, how are you? He wants to know about me. He wants to know what I'm doing, where, everything. And he wants to keep the spotlight off himself. And, I start to get to know him, and we start hanging out and going places together. And I remember at one point I just asked him, I said, how do you do it? Like, how do you attract people? You're like a magnet. You come into a room, like, people want to get to know you. You just, suck people in. Like, they want to get to know you. How do you do it? And he's like, it's easy. Like, it's not some hard task. You just treat people how they want to be treated. Like, that's it. And I think about that to this day, because it was like, I doubt he would have wanted to have been treated like that during his pregnancy if he ever got pregnant, I can assure you. And I doubt that he would want to be treated the way that his daughter gets treated.
Yeah, now let me ask you about that. Do you think that was him being a bad guy, or do you think that he was forced into a situation where he needed to be a bad guy? And I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just really trying to figure it out.
No, I completely understand that. And I'll be completely honest. I think in the beginning, I think it was his addiction. And, like I talk about throughout the book, there's a chapter, where I thought that this demon had won and taken him in. I thought he was going to die and his life was in my hands. And, I discussed that throughout the book. He was suffering, and it was so obvious to see. And I cared about him so much, and I felt for him. And I had this empathy for him. And so in the beginning, when I left and I came back and the pregnancy and stuff was over and he wasn't there, I blame the addiction for that, because, that is a quality of addiction, that sort of, deflection and dismissive behavior, avoidant. And so that's, I think, a reason I didn't say anything and I kept it hidden for so long, because I believed it was his addiction. But
right. Lunden Roberts, hang on 1 second. We're going to continue with you straight ahead. Folks, we're talking to Lunden Roberts. She is the mom of Navy, Hunter Biden's daughter. The book is Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. Folks, we're coming right back with Lunden Roberts. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We are continuing our conversation with Lunden Roberts. She's the mom of Navy. And Navy is Joe Biden's granddaughter, Hunter Biden's daughter, the daughter that they failed to recognize for a little while. And we were just discussing whether or not this was something that was part of the addiction. Was it just Hunter being a D-bag? Was it, what was it? Because honestly, I've never really met somebody that just outright says, no, that's not my kid, unless, there was some sort of paternity dispute. And especially people that have means, right? People that are, the first family of the United States. It just seemed very odd that this would happen. But Lunden Roberts is sharing her story in her tell-all book, Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. Lunden Roberts, you were telling us that you chalked it up to his addiction, that he didn't acknowledge this because of his addiction. Continue.
I did. I put that he, the abandonment during pregnancy and all those things, the avoidance, I chalked that up to his pregnancy. But then, it was later on, and Joe starts running for president or whatever. They were campaigning or something. And, now we're hearing that there's a sober Hunter. And if there's a sober Hunter, why is he not taking accountability? And so I want to say that the Hunter I knew is still the Hunter that's in there. And if that's the case, I would hope that this had to do with, something he had to do to some PR or whatever it was. The Hunter.
Right. Somebody's saying, hey, look, this isn't going to help the campaign. You got to keep this thing under wraps. But if that were the case, then maybe he should have sent some money and he should have said, look, I can't really be public about this, but I got to take care of you guys. Did that happen?
Not necessarily. What I don't understand is what PR would tell them to not embrace a child.
Right. Yeah.
Even
it
if
doesn't
it's one
seem
out
like
of
good politics
wedlock,
to me. Right. Because the minute somebody finds out you're hiding a child, you're going to look like a really bad person.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain the behavior and what I think. I've gone through different emotions and different thought processes, and I don't know. I can't explain that behavior.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I'm sorry you went through this because I can't imagine, I have two daughters and I can't imagine either of them ever going through something like this. And you're handling it like a champ. And I'm sure Navy's a champ as well. My pleasure. So you're now you've been together for a year. You've had this 9-month pregnancy. Out comes this beautiful baby girl. And where does the story go from there?
Actually, here a few months later, that it's been said that he's sober. But after Navy's born, he reaches out to one of my friends, and he talks to her, and he ends up telling her, he's like, how do I even know if this child's mine? And she was like, no, Hunt, this child is yours. And you're not going to get away with avoiding it to me. And he's like, I know, you're right. I'm just saying, I'll take responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And, goes on his way, charming. And when she called and she told me that, I knew that he wasn't going to take accountability and he was going to put this off. And whether he was sober or not, something which at the time she had met with him and he was not sober. And so, again, I'm still chopping it up to addiction, but I'm also getting angry because it's been so long and I've done this on my own. I've been through so much just to do this. And I was mad. I was very angry at that point, and I wanted him to take accountability because, you have a child that deserves the world. And then someone that just dismisses her and acts as if she doesn't exist. After he laid there and cried, saying he could never have a child on this earth, that he would not be in its life while I was pregnant before I left. He laid on the floor in the fetal position saying that, but yet he can't be in her life. And nor will he take accountability.
What was the context of that? Was this like were you leaving? Was he leaving?
No, I was having an ultrasound. Remember, he said he'd be there for me. And so I was having an ultrasound for the heartbeat, and he didn't show up. And I went by myself, and I listened to it by myself, and I sent the recording to one of our mutual friends who let him listen to it. And he said he wanted to, and when he did, I think it made it real for him, and he just kind of broke. And he laid on the floor in this fetal position, crying, saying that he would not have a child out there, that he could not be in its life. But, he was in a dark place, and he knew that. And he knew, bringing a child into that was disastrous. And he didn't want another scandal. And there was so much that, came with that. And so I think he was just at that breaking point. And that's when, I became a burden. I became a scandal.
Now, before you became a scandal, you were a girlfriend and a friend of his and someone
Right.
confidant, and you guys, had this baby together. And help us understand. Let's talk a little bit about who you are, your background. What are you doing with yourself at this point? Are you? Is it just the work in the bar? Is there something else? I know you were in grad school at one point. What's the whole picture?
Yeah, I'd come to DC initially for CSI school at GW, and then I talk in the
To be a
book
crime
about
scene
kind of
investigator?
yes. And then, I talk in the book about where it goes from there and working for Hunter and, doing starts off, just doing little odds and ends and as kind of assistant type work, and then stepping into a professional position. And yeah, I was somebody that he trusted as well, which brings me into, Hallie had told me at one point that Hunter was somebody or I was somebody that Hunter trusted, and that didn't happen often. So when I got pregnant, I felt like I had let him down. I had become another scandal, and Hunter was known for those. And that he felt so bad for being this disappointment, he felt like, to his family. And once I became another scandal, it broke my heart. I thought I had let him down.
Now, what's your relationship with Hallie Biden?
I don't have a relationship with Hallie Biden. I've just met her a couple times.
I see. Okay. So, all right. So you're trying to make this life as a crime scene investigator. You're doing your thing. You meet Hunter. You're in and out of this relationship with him, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. It seems like he cares about you. You care about him, and you're trying to make sense of it. And you're even enabling a little bit, right? You're like, oh, it's got to be the addiction. He's not really a bad guy. And again, I've never met Hunter Biden. But from what I've seen in the interviews I've seen, he seems like he's an affable guy that was likely taken in by addiction and by his own family,
Yes.
right? Because of the politics of it, it's a massive thing. Even if you're a nice guy, you're involved in this thing that's very big. And I get that. I'm not making excuses because I think it's
Right.
shameful
Right.
to do what was done here. But I'm trying to make sense of it from a very humanistic perspective and to get the story. And I get it. And now what's the next step? You're like, hey, I got this kid, and he's like, no, but I know, but I'm not knowing. And is he not in touch with you? Is he in touch with you?
Nope. He is not, but he is actually in touch with two of my good friends and two
Wow.
mutual friends of ours. And he continues to talk to them. At one point, he tells one of them, that he's sober, and another one, he arranges to come see him, and he's not. It's back and forth still.
Right.
And
he's in a tough spot.
There was just a lot of things going on, and I filed the paternity suit because it seemed as if,
right.
he
It was the
would
right
not
thing to
take
do at that
account-
point, right? That's
Yeah.
his child, and the child deserves
I'd
her
sent him
father, or
in-
for him to be accountable. Hold on one second. I'm going to take a quick pause here. We're going to come right back. Folks, we're on with Lunden Roberts. She is the author of a tell-all memoir about the tumultuous relationship with her and Hunter Biden. The book is called Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden by Lunden Roberts. Lunden, hang on with us. We're coming right back. Folks, I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you straight till 1 a.m. Eastern time. And you've heard the term baby mama drama, but in this situation, I think it's more like baby daddy drama, right? Because you got Hunter Biden failing to step up to his role as a father and do the right thing for his new baby, Navy. Lunden Roberts is the baby mama in this situation, and she's, in my opinion, being incredibly patient, incredibly kind, and incredibly graceful with him, giving him the benefit of the doubt time and time again through mutual friends, getting cut off, all of that, and everything else. But she files a paternity suit because the child deserves her father, and he has to be accountable. Lunden Roberts.
Yes, and, I take him to court to do a DNA test. And that's, the media, like you had said earlier, sometimes the media gets it right. And the media put pressure on him a lot. And my attorney did, too, through the media. It's like, if this child isn't yours, take the DNA test.
Right.
And for the first time in a long time, I told my attorney, I said, listen, I don't want the DNA tampered with. I want both samples put in that machine, and I want your eyes on it the entire time. I don't care if it takes 3 days. And he was laughing. And of course, they found a facility that only did, it was like a 5-hour turnaround. We'd have the results in 5 hours. And Hunter said that he'd pay for it as long as the results were his. So of course I didn't bring my checkbook because there was no reimbursement that was going to happen. And when I walked in, I told my attorney, I said, let Hunter and his attorneys know that after these results, he has 7 days to tell his family the truth. And the DNA test, of course, came back as was. And, here we are. Paternity was established, and that was the first time I was able to breathe. But, there was still no acknowledgement, still no accountability. It's as if that didn't exist. It just got tossed to the side that you have this child in Arkansas with 99.9% certainty it's yours, and you just don't acknowledge her. But you are, your family's all over the place together, going on vacations and so entwined, and you're leaving one out.
Now, Lunden Roberts, I know one of the stories that I saw here in the few minutes that we have left, I think we have about 2.5 minutes, is a story where it says you grabbed 2 guns and was certain about fatally shooting an MMA fighter. Tell us about this.
Yes, actually, while I was going through the paternity suit, what most people don't know, and all these crazy stories, when I talk about crazy, wild stories in the book, they're not all about Hunter, but most of them are. But there are some, I start dating a guy and I become engaged to a man, and he's an MMA fighter, and he absolutely lost his mind throughout the paternity suit because it just put so much on him. He just couldn't handle it. And he resorted to drugs. And now I'm going through the same thing again, except this time, it's a different kind of drug and a different kind of addiction, and this psychosis type. It was the oddest thing. And for mine and my daughter's safety, we had to file a restraining order. There was a night that he came to my house with a knife to try to beat down the door to get to me. And, we had called the cops, but I was barricaded in my bedroom with a gun ready to unload when he knocked the door down.
Wow.
But,
Roberts,
thankfully the
crazy.
cops got there in time.
Folks, I recommend you get a copy of the book, maybe 2, one to give away. This sounds like something you want to read while you're on the beach for sure. The book is called Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. The author is Lunden Roberts. Lunden Roberts, I wish you the best with everything that you're doing for you and for Navy. I imagine this can't be easy, but hopefully writing the book and, doing well with this is something, some sort of consolation for the crazy that you've been through. What's the next step for you now? And I guess 15 or 30 seconds. What do you do now? What's the future look like for you?
Going back to being a mom. I've spent the last 6-7 months writing this book and putting my all into it and reliving a bunch of trauma that I didn't want to. And I'm so ready to go back to just moving forward and being a mom. Just
normal life. Let everybody know how they can keep in touch with you if they want to, follow the work that you're doing with this book.
Well, actually, Skyhorse Publishing, they have it all on their Instagram. And I also have my social media is Lundentown, LUNDENTONN _. And I'm on Instagram as well.
Well, I'll definitely give you a follow, and we'll be promoting everything as well. I wish you the best of luck. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Godspeed to you. My best to you and to the little girl.
You as well.
All right, America, we continue straight ahead with the rest of your calls, comments, and everything else that we've got going on tonight. Don't move a muscle. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Night with Rich Valdez.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! We are not going to stand silent while U.S. tax dollars kills babies and women and children. My opponent supports genocide. My opponent and AIPAC are the ones destroying our democracy.
That is Congressman, I should say, soon to be former Congressman Jamal Bowman from New York, 16th District. He lost his primary today. That's right. He was doing that whole rally with AOC, Bernie Sanders, all the other crazies that attended that. That was all to get people out to vote. And Jamal Bowman has become the first member of the squad to lose the 2024 primary as Democrats are divided over Israel. That's some breaking news, happened about an hour ago. Jamal Bowman loses his primary. Someone else will be running for his seat in November. Big deal, right? Big deal. Now, he was beaten up on AIPAC and this and that. Well, AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, they're a pro-Israel lobbying group, and they support both Democrat and Republican candidates. They spent millions against Bowman. He was talking all that jazz, and they came at him. And they gave more than $1.5 million in donations to his opponent. Now, Bowman lost to Westchester County Executive George Latimer, 70 years old. Bowman's only 48. And, of course, he has a doctorate in education. He's an educator. And this was a big race. Largely was focused on their opposing views on the Israel-Hamas war. Now, if you'll remember, yesterday when I gave my commentary on Jamal Bowman's comments over the weekend, where, he was like, tell them who the F we are and AIPAC and all this crazy stuff, I was saying, when you're in the South Bronx, that's not what people care about. I mean, you will get some radicals that want to jump on the latest bandwagon, sure. But people want to pay their bills. People want to have enough money to pay for that air conditioner that's in their window. Because electricity isn't cheap. And people aren't getting any extra money to deal with inflation. And that's something that Dr. Bowman and his friend Joe El Baboso Biden, I think they seem to forget. That life gets more expensive for all of us. And they're not helping us make more money. But there was somebody that did. That's right, Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th president of these United States. And that's why when he comes out here, he tries to cut through the noise. And he tries to make sense. Saying things to African Americans back in 2016, like, what have you got to lose? Right? He makes sense. And I think that's part of the appeal. And that's why we're going to have a convicted felon in the White House, at least by my prediction. But Jamal Bowman has now become the first member of the progressive group of House lawmakers known as the Squad to lose a primary challenge. Isn't that something? Absolutely. I'm surprised. I am surprised. I'm surprised that he actually lost, but it doesn't surprise me that he lost, if that makes sense, right? Because when I saw what he was campaigning on, it seemed very desperate. It seemed like, how do you think you're going to get people to vote for you in the midst of a recession when you are actively doing nothing to talk about the issues that really matter to this district? And I was looking at his Twitter feed a little while ago. He's got a video there, and he's calling out all these areas. I broadcast out of WFAS. That's in New York, and that's in his district. And I can't think of anybody in the area of the radio station that's interested in arguing over Hamas and Israel as opposed to what's really happening in their pockets. Folks, Rich Valdez coming right back. Hour number 2. Don't go anywhere.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Tuesday night. We're live, we're national. It is hour number 2, and our phone number is 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a bunch of things. First, I want to remind everybody that we just discussed the breaking news that Jamal Bowman, one of the squad members, is out. He was ousted by County Executive Latimer from White Plains, who ran against him, and he lost largely because of his position of being pro-Hamas and anti-Israel. And the anti-Israel stance that he took cost him because the pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, invested a bunch of money. That's what they do, right? That's what lobbyists do. They invested a bunch of money and they took this guy out. So no more Jamal Bowman from the squad. That's that part of it. Then there's Julian Assange, right? Julian Assange has been given freedom for the first time in 12 years, and that's because he agreed to say he was a spy. And again, there's been a lot of controversy over that for the years. Some people think he's an absolute hero. Other people think he's a traitor. Whatever side of the debate you're on, Julian Assange is a free man. And I'm pretty sure that's good for him. And I'm glad that, those that were looking to kill him a couple of years ago didn't get to kill him, right? The guy is alive, and he gets to walk away. So it makes you wonder about some stuff. Anyway, let us continue. What else do we have in the news? The number 6, right? We've got former speechwriter for Obama, Jon Favreau. He's on The Morning Joke today on MSNBC, and he says that Biden is struggling with black voters because they're cynical. Listen to this.
I think where he's struggling is among younger voters, black voters, Latino voters, white voters, people who just aren't paying as close attention to politics, who aren't tuned in. And one of the reasons they're not tuned in is because they're cynical about politics and they're frustrated about politics. And the way to turn that around, I mean, this is what the whole campaign's about. This is why they're going to spend all that money. And they have so many staff and so many battleground states, because this is going to be a race about making or trying to get people's attention as best you can and try to force the choice in the election.
Again, that is a former Obama speechwriter saying that they're trying to force the situation. Clearly, it's important for everybody to reach every constituency, not just black voters, white voters, Hispanic voters, Asian voters. You need to get every voter. And I think that's a given, at least from my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people don't. They just want to get these larger voting blocks, and they're like, hey, that's it, we're out of here. And largely, I think some corporations are doing the same thing, which is why you see the constant introduction or push for diversity, equity, and inclusion, where we have people that, are pretty much open about saying certain things, like the recent James O'Keefe sting on the Disney people, the first installment of it. He's secretly undercover interviewing a guy. And the guy basically says, look, if you're planning on applying for that job, you'll never get it. They're not hiring white men. They're only going to hire someone that's a minority, which, again, against the federal law. It's one thing to encourage things. It's another thing to codify it and say, look, we're not going to hire somebody that's openly white. and that is obviously crazy. But this is what this guy alludes to in that O'Keefe video that came out on Friday. So I say all of that to say diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, no friend to he who loves liberty, no friend to he who loves just the status quo in America, which is a merit-based system, right? We are a meritocracy, or at least we once were. But little by little, it seems like we're pushing the envelope and getting to new places. Now you've got new evaluation systems for teachers, right? For teachers that are looking to continue their education, elementary school teachers and secondary school teachers. Now, through the Pearson evaluation system, they're hooking up with the Massachusetts Department of Education, and they're implementing DEI there. And the DEI doesn't end. It seems like they're putting it absolutely everywhere they can to make sure they affect as many people as they can and hold on to as much, I'm going to use the term political power as they can, because that's where they're developing their political power, in the classroom. And I want to get an update on this and help, you and me, all of us, understand the importance and the impact of what's going on with this DEI in Massachusetts schools, as well as a little bit later we'll talk about the anti-parent legislation that's just come out of California. And to do that, I want to talk to Jonathan Butcher. He's been here before. He's excellent on the topic. He's a research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Jonathan Butcher, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
You bet. So let's talk a little bit about this DEI that's being pushed in Massachusetts.
So it's common in K-12 schools now for administrators to use methods that aren't, quite as obvious, right, to parents or to the media, right? They may not always advertise that they're going to push DEI or these racial preferences in their programs. Massachusetts happened to do so in this particular case. I mean, it was in a press release that they released with Pearson, which is one of the largest curriculum companies in the world. And Pearson has actually been pushing, quote, anti-racism, the ideas from Ibram Kendi's books in their curriculum now for many years. I did a report on it last summer, talking about how Pearson has committed itself to publishing materials that have anti-racist content in it. And when I did so, they scrubbed their website and tried to remove the instances that I had pointed to in my research. And, of course, we called them out on it, and New York Post, wrote an op-ed, and various other places pointed out that Pearson was trying to cover their tracks. So the reason that they went to all this effort, right, to hide what they were doing is because DEI is highly unpopular, right? People don't like being told that their skin color is the most important thing about them. DEI's philosophy, right, its worldview that your identity is the most important thing about you is not a popular idea. People don't like being told that.
Go figure, right? It's just crazy, but I agree with you. I think people don't want to be the oppressed or the oppressor, honestly. I think people get tired of that rhetoric, and I think we're starting to see it, but maybe not see it enough, right? Because you look at, and again, this is just a parallel example. Breaking news from a little while ago, Jamal Bowman from the Squad just lost a primary. Obviously, this guy's a guy with a doctorate in education. He didn't see it coming. He thought that embracing these extreme left policy positions was going to help him, and even alienated his own base politically. And I think do you think we're going to get to that point with DEI amongst those on the left in education?
Well, I think that there are those who see clearly on this issue on the right and the left today. And I think there are kind of truth tellers on both sides, right? I mean, Bill Maher has been outspoken about this. We've seen state, the most encouraging, I think, policy development that we've seen over the last year is that state policymakers are now adopting laws that say you may not use taxpayer spending to pay for a DEI office on your public college campus. And we've seen this in Texas and Florida. There's been moves in Oklahoma. It's been very encouraging, right, that state lawmakers recognize that DEI violates the core principles of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And I mean, look, if you want to have a privately funded office that does diversity, equity, inclusion, so long as it doesn't violate anti-discrimination laws, if you want to talk about,
right,
diversity, equity, inclusion, okay, well, more power to you as long as you're not, actually discriminating against people. But you should not be allowed to use taxpayer money to actively go against what the civil rights laws that have been such a core part of the American experience, right? I mean, the civil rights laws were they were hard fought. They were hard, it was hard. They were hard won. I mean, you got to remember that. When Kennedy was pushing for the Civil Rights Act in 1963, I mean, right before he died. I mean, this was after years, right, of Jim Crow laws, of states undoing some of the good work that had been done immediately after the end of the Civil War. It was just this cycle of trying to get America back to a place where we understood, right, that racial discrimination violated our central ideas of freedom and equality under the law. And then, now we're sort of circling back around because of the ideas of Ibram Kendi and Robin DiAngelo and all of the, quote, social justice warriors who are telling us that once again, identity politics should rule the day.
Well, I'm hopeful that the work that you're doing to counter some of this and that we're all doing in trying to raise awareness for the work that you do and get to people, because I feel like those on the other side, those pushing the agenda like Ibram X. Kendi, I feel like he's running out of steam. I know I read something recently that he's been targeted. There's a lot of backlash against his work. And again, this is not me wishing any one particular person ill will. This is my observation that I think people are just like, it's just, it was a flash in the pan. It was a fad. It was a timely thing, but we're really not interested. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, he's representative of the movement, right? I mean, it's nothing personal with him. I mean, it's his ideas that we're talking about, but he represents, right, this move in the last, I would say, decade in particular, to inject radical racial favoritism back into American society. And I think we have, fortunately, increasingly rejected it. What we're seeing out of Boston University, which is where Kendi teaches, is there was an investigation into his department. They largely found that the results from all of the money that his department raised, especially after the George Floyd killing in the summer of 2020 and all of that, really produced very little, right? He had little to show for it. He fired much of his staff. People were frustrated with his leadership. So point being here that his thesis, right, that discrimination is necessary today because of past discrimination, it will be necessary in the future because of present discrimination. It didn't hold, right? People didn't buy that as a way to create a better sense of American identity, right? I mean, what we really need here is for people of different colors, different backgrounds, to understand that we share something as Americans, right? We do have important things in common that will allow us to be contributing members of society, to be able to raise children, to have jobs and pursue successful careers, to pursue human flourishing, right? These are all the things that people want. We don't want to have to argue every day over whether or not our child is going to be assigned to a mandatory affinity group in their public school based on their skin color, right? We don't want to have that debate all the time, right? We don't want to have a debate.
Of course not.
We don't want to fight over whether or not there should be quotas in college admissions based on skin color, right? I mean, that's not where
or even worse, for parents to be kind of kept in the dark if somebody teaches your kid that they should become the opposite sex and choose to make this transition as a minor. I mean, there's so many crazy things that are going on, and you're pointing out a lot of them. Let me just remind the audience, we're on with Jonathan Butcher. He is the Will Skillman Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Center for Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. And when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion, adding in this tidbit on the anti-parent legislation coming out of California that says just that. If your kid decides to transition, nobody's telling the parents. That doesn't sound like a good idea. We're going to get to that and more straight ahead with our guest, Jonathan Butcher. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Jonathan Butcher, and he is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation focused on education policy. And Jonathan Butcher, in the couple of minutes that we have remaining, I'd like you to tell us what's going on in California.
So California lawmakers have adopted or sent a bill to the governor, so it's close to being finalized here, that would prohibit a school from adopting a policy that would require the school to tell a parent if the parent's child came and said they wanted to choose a different, quote, gender. Now, the significance here is that parents have to sign a form giving schools permission to give their kids cough drops, right? I mean, we have to sign forms giving schools permission to give them Tylenol. And what this law would do is it would say, look, school, you can't require a teacher to tell the parent if the child wants to do something drastic like have their breast removed, or if they want to begin puberty altering drugs or hormone treatments. The significant thing here in California is that California schools already post information on their websites about how to find Planned Parenthood centers around town that will provide these medical interventions already. So you're already halfway there with California schools providing this information online, and you're sort of going the rest of the way by saying, well, look, teachers can keep this secret from parents regardless by state law. And it really completes what I think is a very harmful process of creating a wedge in between families and their children, and schools sort of sticking that wall right in between them.
Jonathan Butcher, what is the recourse here? What do people do?
So I think, for one, keep it on top of the lawsuits that are happening around the country, because there are a number of suits around the U.S. where parents have won when schools have kept secrets like this. Second, I would keep an eye on what's happening with the lawsuits against changes to Title IX, because Title IX of the Civil Rights Act, what are known as the Education Amendments of 1972, would redefine sex to mean sexual orientation and gender identity. The significance here is that if states are able to stop this change and not have it implemented, that would, I think, give parents an upper hand as they push back against state lawmakers in California who are trying to create this policy. So, there's no easy answer, but I do think that a lot's going to be happening in the courts in the very near future on this topic.
Let everyone that's listening know how they can find you online and keep up to speed with the work you're doing.
Sure. My research is at heritage.org, and you can find what we're doing all the time on Twitter at JM_Butcher.
Okay, that's at JM_Butcher. Folks, give him a follow, check him out, and make sure you know what's going on in California, especially if you have kids in any district in California. Jonathan Butcher, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, folks, we continue with more conversation straight ahead. We're going to talk about more trans crazy stuff and sex changes for kids. That's back in the news. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue our discussion on things. And there's, being, I guess, that it's nearing the end of Pride Month, there's a bunch of videos out there that are all over the place. And one of the videos I saw was of a drag queen. I believe she goes by the name Nina West, or he dresses like a she in character as Nina West. And for years, at least 2 or 3 years, this video has been going around. And it's endorsed or sponsored by Nickelodeon. It's I guess a joint effort between their program Blue's Clues and this particular drag queen, explaining the importance of Pride Month and what it is to be trans and things of that nature. And I have a clip of it that I want you to hear. Listen to this.
I want to go to the states now because a lot of states are considering bills or have passed laws that have taken away some of the protections that the LGBTQI community had. In Kentucky in particular, there is a bill aimed at drag queens. The bill's author says it's only to regulate sexually oriented businesses and protect children from seeing sexually explicit things. Here's what one Kentucky legislator said about that move.
How can we be for somebody dressing up like a lady or like a woman and reading books to our kids? What in the world are we thinking?
What would you say to him and the author of the bill there?
I would say that drag is not inherently sexual. I could be in a full-length, long-sleeved, hot pink gown reading a book about Dolly Parton, and they'll still think that something is inappropriate, although it is absolutely not appropriate. We exist as actors do in movies, where they can do rated R movies and they can also do rated G movies. But you don't take content from the rated G movies to say that the rated R movies are inappropriate for the actor who has been in both, right? And drag and art exist on the same level of appropriateness, and we don't deserve to be attacked like this.
And forgive me, folks, I gave you the wrong drag queen name. That's a different drag queen. This is Brigitte Bandit in an interview at CNN. The other drag queen did do the thing with Nickelodeon, but that's not what you just heard. That was my error. I confused my drag queens. Forgive me. And now this drag queen, also LGBTQ activist, is saying that he doesn't feel safe in his own home dressed in drag, and makes some points that I think are clear. And the other clip that you heard is from State Representative Chris Fugate. I was going to say Fugatti. Forget about it. And a Republican from Kentucky. And bottom line here is this is an issue people are at odds at. And there are folks out there that are really taking it to the streets on this. And I don't mean in a dangerous way. I mean in an intellectually honest way, right? Like Jonathan Choe. He's a journalist and senior fellow at the Discovery Institute. And he's out there pounding the pavement, letting people know what this is about and really taking their opinion on it and saying, hey, what are you about? What's going on? Why do you support this? Trying to get to the bottom of things. And occasionally he's met with some resistance. And I got a clip of audio. I want you to hear what a day in the shoes of Jonathan Choe is like. Listen to this.
Why are you coming up to me?
Yeah. How are you?
How you doing?
I'd be happy to shake your hand.
Pleasure to meet you. I don't know your name. You know my name.
Amber. Yeah, sure do. Would you mind stop recording for us?
No.
Okay. Well, no problem. Well,
Would you like my business card?
No, I already have it. Thank you.
Okay.
Just trying to determine what your business is here today.
I wanted to know if Mr. Wallace wanted to comment on this investigation by Attorney General Paxton into the Medicaid fraud allegations.
Okay. I wouldn't have that answer, and so you'd have to go through the proper channels to determine that. But what I am going to do is we're going to go inside for just a brief moment, do some paperwork, and then we can determine the next steps, okay?
Got it. I'm sorry, who's doing paperwork?
I am, sir.
Okay.
All righty?
Great, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Come on in.
I'm sorry.
No, we're going to have you come with us.
Why am I going with you?
We're going to do some paperwork.
About what?
About leaving our property, not being welcome here, not doing Texas children's business.
Am I being trespassed?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Where are the police then?
Right here.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Well.
Houston Police, how you doing? Am I being arrested?
No, you're being warned to not come back in the property.
I see. Why am I being warned? What have I done?
Sir, if you don't mind.
Amber Jacques,
Yes.
You're the manager of security services. I just wanted to know if Mr. Wallace wanted to comment on these serious allegations into Medicaid fraud.
I understand. We
all under his
and
watch.
like as I mentioned before, I don't have an answer related to that, but what I can do is we can do some paperwork, then we can go next steps from
Does
there.
Mr. Wallace work here?
I can't comment to that either.
Got it.
Okay.
That's fine. If I haven't done anything wrong, I'm not really interested in going inside.
So Jonathan Choe, again, journalist, senior fellow at the Discovery Institute, shows up to ask questions about at Texas Children's Hospital to find out about sex change operations, Medicaid fraud, et cetera. And he goes there and he's like, hey, I want to talk to, whoever he wanted to talk to. And instead of saying no, leave, they say, sure, come on in. We're going to do some paperwork to write down that they don't want him to be there, to set him up to trespass the guy. It sounds so disingenuous to me, at least from what I hear from the clip. I want to get to the bottom of this. Let's bring in Jonathan Choe, journalist and senior fellow at Discovery Institute. Welcome, sir.
Hey, privilege to be here this evening. Thanks again, Rich.
Thank you, brother. So tell us what's going on here. I mean, the big story, the little story, why were you there? What happened while you were there? And overall, what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm part of a team of independent journalists deployed to cover this scandal that's erupted at Texas Children's Hospital. And conservative activist Christopher Rufo is the one who broke this story and essentially spotlighted two whistleblowers at Texas Children's Hospital, Dr. Ethan Heim. One of them, the first one to really say that these types of sex change procedures were happening, even though in Texas, lawmakers this past year passed a bill saying that this was all illegal. So one thing led to another, and I was sent out there as part of this team to ultimately confront leadership and these doctors at the center of this firestorm. Dr. Richard Roberts and Dr. David Paul, along with CEO Mark Wallace of Texas Children's Hospital, and essentially they went MIA. They're in hiding right now, and I went to the hospital first to confront Mr. Wallace. Security, along with Houston police and the sheriff's deputy, showed up and trespassed me, so I can't go back onto the property for 2 years now for simply asking questions. And I ended up going to Mr. Wallace's house, and he called the cops again, so I can't go there either. But here's the bottom line. If this trans medicine was so cutting edge and so important and was truly saving lives, why are they trying to do this in the darkness? What are they trying to hide here?
I agree with you. If it's on the up and up, let's talk about it, or take an appointment and let's have a meeting and discuss it. Now, why do you think that they're obfuscating here, Jonathan Choe?
Well, look, I think they know they're in big trouble. When the Texas Attorney General's office gets involved in a Medicaid fraud investigation, and if these are referred for potential criminal charges, the doctors could face up to 10 years in prison. They know they need to start lawyering up and come up with some type of crisis management strategy, because as soon as we landed in Texas, and I was there past few days, and, their PR website went down. Texas Children's Hospital, mysteriously, the PR website went down, and also Baylor College of Medicine, where these two doctors are affiliated with in teaching roles, again, scrubbed the bios of Dr. Richard Roberts and Dr. David Paul from its website. So right now, a lot of backtracking and crisis management happening right now, real time.
Jonathan Choe, I want you to stick with me when we come back. I want you to tell the audience all about what's going on with this Medicaid fraud case. How does it look? What is the moving parts to it? I want to know everything. Folks, we're coming right back with Jonathan Choe, journalist and senior fellow with the Discovery Institute.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our discussion on what's going on in Texas with Jonathan Choe, who's a journalist and senior fellow with the Discovery Institute, explaining this Medicaid fraud allegations that are going on with Texas Children's Hospital and sex change operations on minors. Jonathan, tell us more.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. This is all happening at Texas Children's Hospital Pediatric Clinic. The doctors aren't cutting off body parts just yet, but they were doing something in regards to hormone procedures, essentially giving these minors puberty blockers. And again, this past year, the Texas legislature said, hey, look, we're not having this. We're not going to allow this in the state of Texas, and passed a law making it illegal. And yet, again, according to investigators, the hospital said we would stop the procedures, and the whistleblowers now say that, in fact, that wasn't the case. Even after the hospital allegedly said they would stop the procedures, whistleblower Dr. Ethan Heim has said that they continued. And that's the problem. And that's one of the major allegations. The other bombshell is the nurse at Texas Children's, Vanessa Savage. She's the whistleblower who, again, brought up the Medicaid fraud allegations, saying the doctors would mischaracterize or essentially cook the books to make it look like one procedure was being done when in reality another sex change procedure was happening.
Wow. Like, what's an example of that? Like saying I'm doing an appendectomy and doing like a sex change?
Yeah. Well, I don't know all the details there, but Savage alleged that doctors would, again, miscategorize the treatments to justify gender-affirming care. She believes that the doctors are using the strategy to get around a ban by Texas Medicaid on covering hormone treatments for transgender medicine. And again, if criminal charges are eventually referred here as well, the doctors face up to 10 years in prison.
So, Jonathan Choe, what is the next step here?
So we've just scratched the surface. I mentioned earlier that conservative journalist Chris Rufo at the Manhattan Institute broke this story initially. And what it's done is it's essentially put the squeeze on Texas Children's Hospital and its board and its leadership and lawmakers in Texas as well. And, of course, the Attorney General to really look at what's happening here. This is just scratching the surface, I might add. The other reporters on our team who work for the National Review, Daily Wire, as well as Free Press, are looking at different angles as well. And just this overarching culture at Texas Children's under CEO Mark Wallace of really pushing the woke agenda and trans medicine at all costs instead of doing what's right for the patients. What Nurse Savage has alleged as well is that in many of these cases, these minors who were recommended to undergo these procedures were also misdiagnosed, when in reality they were dealing with depression and other situations like autism. So you have a lot of these youth who have troubled backgrounds to begin with, who are now allegedly, dealing with these procedures but under the guise and hands of these doctors.
Wild stuff. Jonathan Choe, let everyone that's listening know how they can keep up to speed with the work that you're doing and how they can help. Yeah,
you can follow my work primarily on X at Choe Show, at ChoeShow. And, I'm a senior fellow at Discovery Institute as well. And it really, Rufo and I, we were debriefing after this initial trip to Texas, and we're like, wow, we can't believe that it took a bunch of outside journalists and independents to really crack this story. And I think that's kind of another, narrative that's emerged out of this, that it really is going to take the independent journalists to start digging into these bigger stories that are being neglected or ignored by local Texas media and even other national media outlets for various reasons.
And if people want to support the cause, where do they go?
Yeah, hey, you can always subscribe on my account at X, but they can go to fixhomelessness.org. I primarily cover the homeless crisis in Seattle and the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, wow.
Again, that's fixhomelessness.org. That's where a lot of my work ends up. But, I've really diversified sort of my coverage as well this past year to cover what's going on with trans ideology, as well as, the targeting of minors For example, in Washington State, extremely contentious bill that was signed into law by Governor Inslee, SB 5599, essentially now gives the state the authority to hide kids from parents. In other words, if a minor wants to undergo this sex change procedure, they don't have to consult the parents. They can go straight to the counselors and tell them they want to do this, and the counselors don't have any obligation to notify parents. And that's really scary stuff that's happening in a lot of these West Coast cities.
Very scary stuff. Folks, follow him on X at Choe Show, ChoeShow. Jonathan Choe, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. You're a gentleman, you're a scholar, and you're a patriot. I appreciate you, sir.
Thanks for all your support and amplifying the story.
You bet. We'll talk again soon. And amigos, we come back with your calls and more right after this next segment. We've got Open Phone America. You know the number for that. Get ready. Here we come.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Some polls have shown President Biden lagging his previous levels of support with key parts of the Democratic base, young people, African-American voters, Latin voters, women.
Yeah.
What do you, does that concern you? Does that keep you up at night?
Well, I saw a poll today that said among young people 18 to 30 that Biden was ahead by 23 points, that people did care about a woman's right to choose, LGBTQ and minority issues. They cared about the planet and the rest. So, again, we don't agonize. We organize to get out that vote. As you know, I came up through the ranks as a grassroots political organizer, which said we just have to own the ground in order to win elections. That mobilization requires a message that is inspiring. And I'm so proud of Joe Biden. And by the way, I have a nose for good campaigns. And I am so encouraged by what I smell and see around the country, owning the ground. So I feel pretty optimistic about it, and I feel very proud of Joe Biden, and I know he'll do a good job saying what we're doing next.
That, of course, Nancy La Bruja Pelosi on with Anderson Cooper on CNN. People will vote for Biden because they care about the climate and LGBTQ issues. Maybe that's true for some people. The question is, how much of that base can you hold on to? Didn't work for Bowman. And I think that's an indicator that this hard left stuff, there's not enough people to support it. It's a reality. Just a reality. Anyway, we're going to get into your phone calls and more. And I've got a lot to really get into in the next hour. Hour number 3. We call it Open Phone America, and I'm happy to take your calls. But there is a lot that I want to get through, a lot of audio that I want you to hear. There's just a lot of good stuff today that I want to talk. I want to talk about Jamal Bowman a little more, losing his seat in Congress. He lost his primary. He will not be defending that seat come November. And let's see how it plays out in November. Will a Republican take it? I don't know. I hope so. But bottom line, it won't be Jamal Bowman. And that's good news. The squad is one member light this evening. All right, folks, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Looking forward to your calls and more when we come back. Straight ahead, I am Rich Valdez. Don't move a muscle.
from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program, hour number 3. If you're just tuning in, thank you for joining us. If you want to join our national conversation, you can. Give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the number. And there's a lot. There's so much I want to get into here. I hope we have enough time to get even close to most of it. But there's a story in the New York Post that I think is really wow. And let's see, where did it go? Right here. Wealthy white couple charged with using their adopted black children as slaves. And I was blown away by this. I mean, you had to hear how these kids were being treated. And we've got a report on it. Listen to this.
Believe they targeted these children specifically from a shelter because they were black, forcing them to work as slaves.
Being charged with a felony, child neglect, creating risk of injury.
The 2 children were being locked in a barn at this home on Cheyenne Lane in Sissonville.
They weren't able to locate any guardians or parental figures or anybody around the residence or the barn, and started having a conversation with 2 children that were inside the barn.
Deputies eventually forced their way into the barn, where they said they found a 16-year-old girl and 14-year-old boy inside a 20 by 14-foot room. Investigators say the teens had no way to get out of the shed, with no running water, no bathroom. The girl told deputies their parents had brought them food around 6 o'clock that morning, but said her and her brother weren't allowed in the house and were locked in the barn for long periods every day. Eyewitness News spoke to neighbors who were afraid to go on camera, but claimed multiple families called police about the children's safety several times, and they are thankful they are now safe.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty bad case. I mean, it's any type of situation like this, it's not really comparable. A horrific condition, like, it's just not how you want or how you would even expect children to be raised or been taken care of.
Lance and Whitefeather eventually showed up at the home. They're now charged with child neglect, creating substantial risk of injury.
That's a report from WCHS-TV in Charleston. And again, this couple allegedly adopted black children to work as slaves and sleep in this barn. And I would love to say I hope that this is not true, but it seems to be true. All the neighbors were calling about this. Everybody was concerned about it. I can't imagine living in a neighborhood where I suspect that you're keeping slaves and nobody does anything about it. That's crazy to me. But Donald Ray Lance and Jean K. Whitefeather, 63 and 62 years old, respectively, they said they were not guilty. That was their plea. And they're not accepting these charges that they received today after these 2 teens were found locked in a crumbling shed. You got to see what this shed looks like. I mean, it's horrible looking. Unbelievable. In ratty clothing. But they were there, and they didn't lock themselves in there, right? I don't think that they're pulling a Jussie Smollett in this situation. Right? Nobody's screaming that it was MAGA country. Here, it's not, it doesn't seem to be staged in the least. This is a legitimate shed where they found these kids. It's horrible. And it just makes me think, I'm glad they found these kids, and I'm glad this isn't happening, but how much more of this is happening? I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know. Maybe, probably close to 2 years ago, right? Year and a half, 2 years. We had a guest on. I can't remember his name, but he was a very nice guy. He was a fundraiser, a big fundraiser for the Democrat Party in California. And he was also an attorney, and he came up as an activist working for Cesar Chavez, from the farmer group. I forget what they were called, the farming group. And his story had nothing to do with that, though. His real story had everything to do with being kidnapped at 4 years old and being kept on a farm as a sex slave, a gay sex slave, where men would abuse him all throughout his not his infancy, but his childhood and his adolescence until he was 16 and worked up the courage to run away. And then became a lawyer and an activist and worked with Cesar Chavez and et cetera. And he told us that story, and it was a remarkable story of what child trafficking looks like and what it was. And in that case, he was a sex slave. Here, it just seems that they had these guys as regular slaves, as far as we know. But, I mean, these stories, heartbreaking, right? Absolutely heartbreaking. And, you know, maybe, I don't know if we can do it, but hopefully we can format that interview to kind of replay it one of the days for 4th of July. Because I think you'd really enjoy listening to that interview if you didn't have a chance to hear it when we played it originally. Very eye-opening stuff. And this case reminds me of that because it just makes me think, is this the norm outside of New York City, right? Is that what people do? You have a barn, you keep people in there, you start stealing kids? Of course not. That's not the norm. But it seems like this type of bad behavior is just happening more and more and more. And, of course, the Democrats and Joe Biden in particular are going to say crime is on the decrease. We're doing a lot better than we used to do. It's amazing what you can do when you get to cook your own books, right? Unbelievable. Anyway, let us go to Tommy, Charleston, West Virginia, on WCHS Radio. Tommy, go right ahead.
Hi, Mr. Valdez. On the subject you recently touched upon with the kids being abused, held in the barn, they got locked up a while ago, bro. And recently, an effort to post that bond was blocked. That's subject to a hearing because they believe the money emanated from some form of human trafficking. Exactly what that involves, I don't know. But let me say, living in Charleston, and Sissonville's up the road from in the county, you know who lives in Sissonville? A bunch of hillbillies. A bunch of people that the liberals automatically know everything about them because they're white, they're hillbillies. Isn't that enough to list all the things you know about them? Who undid these strange couple? Well, it was their neighbors who found that what was going on there was odd to them, really odd. A couple of times when I believe it was troopers, might have been deputies, went out there to look around, well, the kids are legally there. They didn't find the right kinds of things that made them say, you know, this is an abuse situation. The third or fourth time they went out there, they found the abuse taking place with kids being locked in a barn. And finally, the kids started making statements. Right now, they're both still in prison, awaiting trial. And the prejudice against these people, okay, and I mean the people in Sissonville, it's the only prejudice that's still legitimate in America. But it was them and their concern for human beings that led to this arrest taking place.
I see what you're saying, and you know, it's an interesting point. The today what they were doing in court today was accepting or you know, pleading guilty or not guilty to a dozen new charges. I guess as the investigation has continued, they've added human trafficking charges, child neglect charges, risk of bodily injury and potential death, and the bond wasn't sufficient. So that was part of what happened today. But you're right. The left is quick to criticize, you know, the Bible thumping, what did Hillary call it? Basket of deplorables, right? And Obama said we were bitter clingers of guns and Bibles. But in the reality of life, it is those bitter clingers of guns and all of us, right, that make up that part of life, right? The part of life where we love liberty. and the part of our society that embraces just individual freedom, and those in your neck of the woods, right, in Sissonville and in Charleston area, it was them that came to the rescue of these kids, and good on them, and God bless them for doing it, because we need people to do the right thing. And it's just, I hear stuff like this, and it really just it gives me a I don't know what word to use here, but I feel somewhat depleted in my outlook on life, right? When I hear that this is what's happening in not that far away from I am, right? West Virginia is not that. I drove to West Virginia a couple of years back. Long ride, but not that long. It's not another country, is my point. And to think that's what's going on, terrible. Does it mean it's happening everywhere? Of course not. But the fact that it's still happening, still absolutely terrible. Tommy in West Virginia, you got the best New York accent in West Virginia, that's for sure. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. And, folks, we're going to continue with your call straight ahead. We're going to do a quick pause here. We're coming back. You will not believe some of the crazy that's going on. So now there's a company out there that says, if you're a bad guy and you commit crimes, maybe we should just offer you rehab instead of jail time. And in our rehab, we'll hook up some electrodes to your head and we'll make you think happy thoughts. And we will erase the bad stuff and you will have been rehabilitated. Yep. This is a real thing that a company's proposing, and you're going to hear the audio when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Welcome to Cognify, a facility designed to treat criminals like patients. Instead of spending years in an actual prison cell, prisoners could finish their sentence here in just a few minutes. Cognify could someday create and implant artificial memories directly into the prisoner's brain. These complex, vivid, and lifelike memories are created in real time using AI-generated content. Depending on the seriousness of the subject's crime and their sentence, the memories could be tailored to the rehabilitation needs of each subject. The artificial memories implanted by Cognify would be seamlessly incorporated into the existing neural networks of the brain. First, the prisoner is given a choice, either spending tens of years in a prison cell or seeking fast-track rehabilitation through artificial memory implantation. If the prisoner chooses to undergo fast-track rehabilitation, the Cognify device is used. Next, the prisoner undergoes high-resolution brain scanning to create a detailed map of their neural pathways. This brain map helps guide the Cognify device to target specific brain regions responsible for memory, reasoning, and logical thinking.
That is a real commercial for Cognify. Neural pathways, creating new positive memories for criminals, wiping out the bad stuff, putting in the new stuff, and this is how they're suggesting we're going to fix criminals. This is what a company is really suggesting. This is in today's Daily Mail, the newspaper out of the UK. Scientists want to implant prisoners with, quote, memories of their crimes that show the victim's perspective. A scientist has unveiled a concept for a prison of the future that he claims would fast-track a criminal's release to minutes instead of years or decades of incarceration. The company is called Cognify, and the design would implant synthetic memories of a person's crime into their brain, but showing the victim's perspective. The system could feature a VR, virtual reality-like device that displays AI-generated footage of their offense. They couple this with a brain implant that includes emotional states like remorse or regret, feelings that some individuals may not produce on their own. And what's so interesting to me here is this reminds me of the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall. But this is real life. And I think this is absolutely insane. I mean, absolutely insane that we would do that. And if we could do this, what I would want to know is, could we also do this for people that are transgender and say, hey, we're going to give you some memories so that you can feel like the sex that you're supposed to be. We'll give you some good male gender memories or good female gender memories. And again, I'm intentionally confusing gender and sex because I'm not confused. I'm making a point. Or maybe we could give it to Congressman Jamal Bowman, right, who lost his primary today, and say, hey, look, this is why you should feel bad about pulling that fire alarm and trying to interrupt the vote. You know, he did basically what they accused Trump of doing on January 6th. He did it. He interrupted a vote in Congress to certify an election to pull a fire alarm. Go Bowman, who tried to start a chant of his own, right? Bowman, Bowman. Did you see that? That was so funny. Anyway, so I want to get your thoughts on all of this stuff because absolutely crazy. Let's go to New York, WFAS, and check in with Jorge. Jorge, go right ahead.
Rich, hi. I wanted to talk to you about Jamal Bowman, and I'm glad that you brought up the fact that he did what he did in the Chamber of the House of Representatives, because I had completely forgot that. But maybe that is part of the reason why he lost. But I wanted to get your views as to where you think the direction of the Democratic Party may be heading now with his loss. Do you think that this indication of the potential of another aspect of the Democrat Party emerging different from that has held the power for some time now?
So, Jorge, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. I don't think so. I think that there will always be a radical hard left within the Democrat Party. I think today they did lose some steam. I do. I think I made mention of that yesterday, the fact that they brought out AOC, Bernie Sanders, they had all the firepower coming out for Bowman was because, he felt the threat. He felt the threat. Where I think they really miscalculated was the issue. They really went hard on the anti-Israel issue, thinking that was going to secure some sort of victory. Now, this could have been Bowman being ideological and saying, "Well, I don't care. I'm all in for this," or really a miscalculation of his, thinking, "I better take this position because my constituents believe that." That's where I think he really misjudged this. The neighborhoods that he mentions when he was on Twitter. Listen to this if you have a second. Well, we don't have time to play it now, but when we come back, maybe I'll play it. He's doing this little roll call of all the cities in his district. And these are districts that I know. And I can tell you, these people are not going to take a position like the one that he took. So I don't think it changes the Democrat Party overall. I think, if anything, it might send them a reminder, just like when they were out there saying, defund the police. And then, regular, moderate, and center-left Democrats started losing seats. And they were under fire. Why? So they had to start, kind of denouncing the squad. I think the squad's going to have to fall in line. Ilhan Omar's out of control. Rashida Tlaib's out of control. I mean, clearly, getting arrested and whatnot. Omar's daughter getting arrested. AOC out there, trying to toe the line. I think she sees it coming too. I think they need to check themselves. Rich Valdez coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
In live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So Julian Assange has pled guilty to publishing classified material. They're saying he's a spy. And they've made this deal, and now he's free, right? He's published American military secrets, allowing him to head home to Australia. They've welcomed the WikiLeaks founder home in Australia. The court is saying he's okay. He's a free man as of tomorrow. And this is after pleading guilty to obtaining and publishing classified American military secrets. This puts an end to his 12 years in exile, his legal drama, et cetera, et cetera. We have a clip from the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Listen to this.
The government is certainly aware that Australian citizen Mr. Julian Assange has legal proceedings scheduled in the United States. While this is a welcome development, we recognise that these proceedings are crucial and they're delicate.
Mr. Albanese continued. Go ahead.
I've been very clear as both the Labor leader in opposition but also as Prime Minister that regardless of the views that people have about Mr. Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. Yeah. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia.
So Assange pled guilty to one felony charge of violating the Espionage Act. Let's see. He also spent part of his plea deal, which was the time that he'd already served. So he's basically done. He was seen cracking a smile in the photo that I'm looking at. And United States District Judge Maglona, pronounced him a free man, according to the Associated Press. So that's Julian Assange. He's free. I don't know your thoughts. If you want to weigh in with some tinfoil, I'm okay with that. But I want to get to your thoughts as well on gender-affirming care, Hunter Biden's baby mama, who we had a conversation with in the 10 o'clock hour, and everything else that's going on with the debates coming up. Let us get to the phones. Let us go here to John in Berea, Ohio, WEOL. Go right ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hello. Oh,
everyone
good.
hears you, sir.
Thank you. All right. I wanted to know what you think of this. Gender-affirming care should be, or at least also include, helping people be comfortable with the gender they were born with. I only hear it about gender-affirming care being about changing. It should also be about helping people stay and be comfortable with the gender that they were born with. Particularly,
yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on. That has always been my contention. I truly believe that if you have a little boy and the little boy says, "Oh my gosh, I feel like a little girl," I think the right course of action is, even if you're going to use hormones and all that, why not say, all right, your kid needs more testosterone. We need to regulate the high level of estrogen. Why wouldn't we try to fix what is supposed to be fixed, right? And regulate the existing hormones instead of putting puberty blockers to block these hormones from growing. It's the craziest thing, and I know why. Because they have a plan. I would say that there's an evil scientist somewhere that says, I wonder if we tell people, you can be whatever you want to be, and we'll go ahead and do it for you. Wonder how many people will take the bait on that. And they've done this experiment, and I think they've gotten to a place where they've realized, you know what? This is not a good place where we've arrived. We're in bad shape. And that's why they don't do that in the reverse, because it wouldn't work. Now, I think what you're suggesting of mental health counseling being the first line of defense, I think that's 100% right. If somebody doesn't feel the right way, then great. I think the issue becomes when we start telling them, no, it's not that you don't feel the right way, and I'm using those words on purpose, you feel different. Instead of saying, we embrace that. No, we should embrace that. We should say, no, we're going to help you. We're going to help you because you literally were born a male, and this is your deal. Or you were born a female, and this is your deal. And we're going to help you. And that's really, I think, the gist of do no harm. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on the radio. But I do know that we should do the right thing by people. And clearly, gender-affirming care is not doing the right thing. John in Berea, Ohio, WEOL. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your call. Let us continue with our resident historian on the show, Bill, Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. Bill, how are you, sir?
How are you, Rich? Great
Wonderful.
evening tonight. I really enjoyed that Lunden Roberts Out of the Shadows with Hunter Biden thing, and I did a little research and found out that she was a great basketball player, and in addition to being cute. So I think the book that's coming out in, I guess, August will be worth reading. I'm thinking it would be something to think about on the over this holiday when we have the debate in was it Atlanta?
Oh yes, right. Yeah, listen, I also agree with you. I think we only scratched the surface with her in the half hour we spent with her, and I think that there's a lot more to discuss, and from somebody with a very, very, I'm going to say, singular and unique perspective. I don't think that his Beau Biden, his brother's widow, is going to be able to take that position and give a tell-all account. I don't think that his current wife would be able to give a tell-all account. I don't think anybody could. And, other than what he was able to tell all through his laptop, or what his sister was able to do her tell-all by misplacing a diary, right? I think that those are, kind of fly-on-the-wall approaches, and I wouldn't want to read somebody's diary. But I can say that this book is unique in that I think she's got this unique perspective where she had access to Hunter Biden that the rest of us don't have. And for me, I was moved by the part of the interview where she said that he was in the fetal position crying. And I almost thought it was like, his farewell. He was saying, look, I'm never going to see you again. I got to go, or I got to lay low for a while. But it was really just a very eye-opening thing to hear, how he really just abandoned his own kid. And then the family followed suit. And that was really just, it's just, it raised an eyebrow or two for sure. Bill, Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. Thank you for the call. I appreciate your kind words. Amigos, we come back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And a couple of quick things that I want to mention. Number one, a really interesting show tomorrow. We're going to do a lot of interviews tomorrow because there's a lot to talk about, right? There was an update on the coronavirus stuff. After the Fauci testimony, there was more testimony. One of our guests here was actually testifying on Capitol Hill, Dr. Stephen Choe. And there's, the usual suspects, right? The Gates Foundation, Fauci, whatever. But there's some information about the Gates Foundation and how now they're supporting gain-of-function research. And I want you to hear that from, a doctor, from a scientist, so you understand that. Also, there's some workplace friction going on intergenerationally, right? Millennials versus Gen Z versus Gen X. Some don't get along as good as the others. We're going to talk to Dr. Julie Shannon about that, and I don't want you to miss these. Plus, we've got General Keith Kellogg talking about the threat from Iran, Dr. Dean Beckloff talking about teens and mental health, that book we talked about, Arabella, which is about dark money. I want to revisit that conversation. I also want to revisit a conversation on how elites betrayed the middle class, and my conversation with Batya Unger Sargon. I don't remember her from Newsweek, but very, very eye-opening conversation. But I also wanted to very quickly, shout out Calvin Davis from Utah. He is on one of the social media dropping a comment, and he came up with a funny name for Jamal Bowman. And it was Jamal En Fuego Bowman, making fun of the fire alarm, saying he's on fire in Spanish. Jamal En Fuego Bowman. That was very clever. But Calvin said, I have an update to this, and it's now called Jamal Se Fue Bowman, which means Jamal, he left Bowman because he's been ousted from Congress. Speaking of being ousted, there's also a judge that was ousted in Georgia. Man, I wish I would have played that audio for you. I think I had it maybe yesterday, but I talked about it earlier today on Newsmax with John Bachman, and it really was just eye-opening. This woman was at a bar. She gets a little drunk, and she hits a cop. She's actually a sitting probate judge that's under investigation for 30 counts of ethics violations, and was eventually found guilty of something called systemic incompetence. She appealed that decision from the Judicial Qualification Board. This is Judge Christina Peterson. And she, 38 years old, I believe, and she appealed it to the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court said, you should be removed. And she was removed today after her arrest and assault on a police officer. So just interesting stuff that's going on there. And, of course, we've got the debates. The big debates are coming up. And I want you to hear this clip from Al Sharpton.
But let me say this, the absurdity of this whole thing of whether he is on a drug or whether he was given drugs. I think Joe and I may be the only ones in the building that ever really were in debates. I ran for president. Yeah. Joe was elected and reelected to Congress. The last thing someone needs in a debate is a drug, because you may get hyped up, you may forget something, somebody can easily provoke you. It shows how inexperienced they are to even be talking about drugs. I have friends in the entertainment world, managers used to worry if they took cocaine, they'll forget the lines. If they really wanted to defeat Biden, they would want him on drugs, because he'd forget what he's done for unemployment numbers and what he's done around the economic stability, because he's pumped up. So they really don't know what they're talking
that's
about.
Enough of Al Sharpton. I think Al Sharpton doesn't know what he's talking about, because clearly, if you need to focus, everybody in college knows you take Adderall, right? Simple enough. It's a stimulant. I use coffee, for example, to stay focused, and that's why I'm so kind of scatterbrained, because I don't focus enough, or maybe I'm not drinking enough coffee. But my point is, everybody knows you zero in when you are locked in on Adderall. Everybody's doing it, right? That's what kids are all over every college campus in America for years and years and years. So again, it doesn't mean every kid's doing it, but every kid talks about it, and every kid knows it. And for Sharpton to say that that's not the case, or to think that a heavy-duty shot of vitamin B12 would not do him wonders, it does all of us wonders. When I was a kid, I remember I was sick. I went to the doctor. I felt like I had flu. And I went to him. He said, all right, just bend over. I'm going to give you a shot. And I was like, what's this? And he said, this is a violent dose. In Spanish, he said it, believe it or not. A vitamin C, vitamin B12, and cortisone. And he said, take that. And let me tell you, in like 40 minutes, I felt like a brand new person. I was ready to go to the gym, and I didn't even work out. So that's how drugs can help you. I could see that helping Biden. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but I'm just saying that's just one cocktail that I personally experienced as a teenager that fixed me up real quick. So that is the case. They say that he's not going to be on drugs. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that in the least. But I want to get to your calls. We've got calls from Montana and from Idaho. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So every little thing you do right now matters. I worry if Biden's over-preparing on the sense of having too much going on in your head, 16 different people telling you what to do. It sounds like Trump's going to go more out of his gut instinct to maybe shock and awe people. And remember that this time around, Trump's going to be also debating Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. He's going to try to take swipes at the press, the fake news, and all of that. So he's actually going to be debating 3 people there on that table.
That's Douglas Brinkley, a historian on MSNBC today, saying Trump is going to be debating 3 people. I want to get your thoughts on the debate. Let's go to Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Yeah, the debate is very similar to the 1986 movie of the Star Trek, The Voyage Home, where Leonard Nimoy, as Spock, jumps into an aquarium in SeaWorld to communicate with this whale. And so here he is at the Vatican with the Pope, a dying Pope, just like a dying whale, trying to get some divine wisdom out of this, like it's the last, little nugget of Lucky Charms, whatever. But I don't know. I would make a great Far Side comic for Gary Larson. But
thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. And, I think having that many people, I would suppose when Trump was preparing for his debate, right, he had Governor Chris Christie, who's a very good debater. He's a very good arguer, in terms of like litigating in court and whatnot. He was a very successful United States attorney. So I could see how you bring in an expert, and, Biden thinks the more the merrier. I think just when you have that many people, it's like the old saying, too many cooks spoil the broth. I think that's probably the case there. You just got too much and you're getting pulled in so many different directions. And I think that's why, it's not going to be good. But the good news is for Biden is he knows how to debate, right? He's Biden. And his muscle memory will kick in. You give him his aviator shades, you tell him just flash the pearly whites, squint your eyes, and make something up. Say something crazy. Something that'll get you, halfway through, and where he can land his 2 shots and tell his friends to play them on loop on MSNBC and on CNN. And this way he can have all of his moments of glory. And I think that's all he's really going to be able to pull off. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Frank, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. What's up, Paul? Go for it.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thank God.
Good, yeah, me too. Hey, thanks again. I wanted to mention a couple of things. I think they need to draw a line in the sand and make there a peripheral around the entrance into synagogues where the Jews are going to have free reign to be able to go and come as they please, to be able to do what they do as far as their religion is concerned and where they have it. And,
this is in reference to the attacks in Los Angeles? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. They need to do something, and I think flyers given out to everybody with these flags that are pro-Palestinian and Hamas, I think they need to understand they need to back off. I think that's first and foremost. Now,
I'm just going to say this. I don't think we should ever stop anyone from having free speech. What we have to stop people from doing is stomping on Jews. That I saw in the video, right? The attack of people knocking them to the ground, stomping on them on the ground. That's not allowed, shouldn't be allowed. It's not part of peaceful protest. If they wanted to sit there and hold up a sign and chant and make noise and say, look, we support Hamas, you support the IDF, and we disagree, super. But that's not the case, right, Paul? Never is. I appreciate the call, brother. Shout out to KBOI. Folks, the music means I got to go. We did it again, and we're going to do it again tomorrow. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys then. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night, and God bless. And make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to have a really good show. We got a preview on a few different things that are going on this week. Don't go anywhere. More programming after this. I'm Rich Valdez.